Hello, everyone. Uh, let's start the lecture. I'm Dmitry Danilov. I'm here to be talking on the topic about the vegetarianism, and to be more precise about the misconceptions on this topic. Uh, I will shortly introduce myself before we go into the deep into the topic that I want to discuss today. Uh, I am a yoga instructor of the Ukrainian Federation of Yoga, and I've been doing yoga classes, and I've been a yoga teacher. I've been doing yoga for about 17 years now. And one more thing about myself that I'm very proud of. I have finished my PhD dissertation last year on the philosophy of yoga, and to be to be more precise, on the transformation of dhyana in yoga. So this is a short introduction to who I am. So I will be. Let's begin with the topic. I'm a little bit nervous, so this is the first English lecture in quite a while. So I hope everything will be clear in what I'm saying. My mouth is not used to pronounce many English words. I haven't been speaking for maybe 4 or 5 months any English at all. So I hope I will get into it. And let's join me, please. I think we have a very interesting topic and very interesting facts to discuss. The vegetarianism. This is, many yogis nowadays are vegetarian, and this is nice. I also been a vegetarian for many years. But there is a little story I want to start with. The story of this lecture. 2 years ago, I was in my hometown. We were participating in doing the International Yoga Day, and there was in between the lectures, some people came to me and they said, "Okay, we heard that you're going to be giving a lecture in the evening about the history of yoga, and we want to come, but we can't. We have strict restrictions. We cannot go to the place where." I was giving a lecture in a place of gay and lesbian activists. They have all kinds of lectures and classes, but they are. The purpose of this place was like for the gay lesbian organization, and I was very surprised. So I wanted to decide. I started asking what kind of restrictions do they have, and most of them were about the eat meeting. And when I was talking to them, I found out they don't eat meat for many reasons, because in yoga they don't eat meat. In Vedic tradition they don't eat meat. There is a principle of ahimsa that they don't want to break. There is the India is not meat eating country. So here I put all of the arguments that they mentioned, and afterwards, it's not only those people. After that, I started talking to my friends, and I know many people in yoga. We've been doing classes with Yogis Without Borders in Amsterdam, in Dubai, in Europe, and many places. And actually, these misconceptions, it's not something very rare that you can see or hear somewhere. Very rare. Very rare. It's very common that people think like that, and I want to go over each of these theses, and I want to speak of each of them and show that it's not pretty much like that. I would say that it's really not like that when you go into the texts and look at the facts. So let's go. The main topic, the main thesis here is ahimsa. I put it in the middle of my lecture so that this is a quite tricky topic. So I would like to give more time for that topic. But for all of the rest of the misconceptions and thesis, we go over step by step. So the first one is the Vedic culture, and there is an opinion that the Vedic culture And by Vedic culture, we mean the Aryans, the tribes that came to Indian subcontinent about 3,000 years ago. And the idea that, I mean, there is an idea that the Vedic culture was supporting the fact of not eating the meat, yeah, and that is not really like that. So there are many texts, and usually the Vedas, the actual Vedas, are translated into most European languages, and that is not a big problem to look into these texts to see that there is nothing about it. I mean, there are many pieces of hymns, and the Vedas, the Rig Veda, the Atharva Veda, and the rest, the Upanishads. They have examples of meat eating. So the Aryans did eat meat. So this is a misconception. And I will show you just a couple of examples. There are only three. Two from Rig Veda and one from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, to show you that this is not really the fact. So the first example is about the hymn of wedding. It's the hymn that talks about the ritual of how the wedding should be done in the Vedic tradition, and it is very obvious from the text. I mean, you can see it here on this slide that they were eating meat, because it says they fill my belly full with the meat of the bull and the fat, of this animal. As clear as that. And then the other hymn, which is also really nice, it's from the first mandala of Rig Veda, and it is talking about the Ribhu, the three Ribhu, who were not gods, and they had to do something to become gods. So the hymn is about that. And to become gods, they should do a ritual with a cow, killing it and cutting it in pieces and eating it, as a ritual. From these facts, it's obvious that there was a certain character, a certain attitude towards animal. It was eating. It was for eating. I mean, they were for eating the animals. In this case, the bulls. What is also very important, the animal had a sacral part in this tradition. I mean, usually when, at least what we see now, is when an animal was killed, it was killed in a ritual, although it was also made for gods. The people had a part of this meat. Another piece of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and this is also this is the sixth chapter of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and this chapter might be interesting to many people, because if we read this chapter, at the end of the lecture, I will give you the link to a web page where all these texts are listed, and there is an article and all the links where you can read it in the good academic translations. So we go back to the sixth chapter of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and it is very, very interesting because in this chapter, the author, if you could say it about Upanishad, talks about the ritual of sexual intercourse between a man and a woman. So that in the beginning of the chapter, it goes on about the way the woman should be perceived, how it is important that a woman be perceived as a sacred ground. It is really nice, very poetic, and very sensual and sacral. And after the sexual intercourse, it explains what these two men and woman, husband and wife, should eat and how they should eat it to have a certain child. And that is very interesting because it talks about, if you want to have a daughter, you eat rice with sesame seeds, for example. But if you want to have a son, and we can see it here in the text, if you want a son to be born, which would be a reputed scholar, which would speak delightful words, the child who would study all the Vedas, attain a full term of life, and so on. For that child, you should, this woman and this man, they should eat rice cooked with meat of a vigorous bull. Yeah. So it is a very distinctive and very precise example of the fact that the Aryans did have meat and they ate it. Yeah, in a sacred ritual. Yeah, and the butter they also ate, as we can see it from the slide. Okay, so this is about the argument that Aryans didn't eat meat. It's a misconception. It's a misconception. It is very easy to prove. Just open any translation of the texts of the Aryans of the Vedic tradition, and you will see there many examples of eating. Let's go further. The other argument is, this is also very common, an idea or a thesis that the Aryans they ate meat, but the people before the Aryans, they didn't eat meat, and this is also a misconception. The people, this Dravidian people before the Aryans. This is way back in the Indian subcontinent. It is hard to imagine that they didn't eat anything they had. They ate everything. That's my opinion. But to be more precise, we can go into archaeological findings on the Indian subcontinent, and we can look what did the archaeologists find. And I have a slide with different texts which have a very good studies, academic studies on the food and the diet on the Indian subcontinent before the Aryans, the Vedic culture, started there. And all of them say that there are many bones found, there are many instruments for hunting found. Actually, the Dravidian people were fishermen and hunters. So they ate fish from the sea, from the river. They ate dogs, they ate turtles, they ate poultry. So they ate all kind of living beings. So this argument is also a misconception. That is not so. Let's go further. So we have two theses behind and we have three more in front. Let's go forward. So there is another point that I want to stress, and this is very interesting one, because nowadays vegetarianism is very popular, and usually there is a concept of ahimsa that stands behind vegetarianism. And if we look at the history of ahimsa, and I would probably when I started this, when I said that I will be giving this lecture on the vegetarianism, and my friends were saying, asking me lots of questions about the ahimsa, and I thought that there should be a separate lecture on ahimsa, maybe sometime later. But the understanding of ahimsa nowadays is not precisely the same as it was in the times when it was invented, actually. So the fathers of the concept go way back to the times of Buddha and Jaina. Mahavira, the father of Buddhism and the father of Jainism, and Yes, there is. I mean, for those of you who do yoga, and there is a term ahimsa in the Yoga Sutra, in the Yoga Bhashya, but it doesn't really say anything about what it is. I mean, it's the Patanjali doesn't say anything about it, and the Vyasa he also doesn't say much about it. He just says that if someone is in harmony with this concept, with ahimsa, then around this person there are no aggression. Yeah, this is pretty much what it says. And that is not much. We don't know what ahimsa is. I mean, from the grammatical point of view, ahimsa, if we look at the word, there is a root, hims, which comes from the Sanskrit root verb han, not to kill, and the prefix a is not to kill. Yeah, so it's not. If we would translate it, it would mean not killing or not hurting someone. Okay, so I would say that in yoga we shouldn't kill someone. Okay, wonderful. But let's look at the Buddha and Mahavira. They actually also were standing on the basis of this concept, and we can look at the history, and it's very well described in different texts. And actually, if we look at the history of the fathers of Ahimsa, we can find out that they, Buddha and Mahavira, they both ate meat. Although there was a certain nuance that they kept in mind when they ate meat, and that is what I'm going to be talking about later. So let's go to the next slide. This is not actually the one. I'm talking about ahimsa. So if we talk about ahimsa and we go and we want to find out what kind of life lived Buddha, I would want to start with Buddha. There are two stories that prove that Buddha ate meat. Both stories come from very old sutras of Buddhist canon. So it's not something marginal. It's very uncommon, and it's a canon of the Buddhist tradition, of the Theravada tradition, to be more precise. And in those texts, there are many stories about Buddha, and some of them clearly show that Buddha ate meat, although he was in tune with the ahimsa concept. So in Mahavagga, in the stories of Mahavagga, there is a story where the General Siha, he was a Jain follower, and he goes to Buddha, and he was so overwhelmed and so excited about the meeting Buddha, and he really was inspired by Buddha. So he decided to offer Buddha some meat. And Buddha actually accepted that meat and ate it. And actually, after he ate that meat, he pronounced that he and the monks and his monks should eat meat. But he also said that that is only possible in the case when the monk didn't hear or didn't see that that animal was killed especially for that monk. And we go further with that story, and there is a story of Mahaparinibbana Sutta. I mean, it's not a story; it's a sutra. And this sutra is explaining the way the Buddha died. Actually, it was approximately in the 5th century BC, in the approximately 485-86 year of before Christ. And in this sutta, it is said that Buddha ate meat which was offered by the blacksmith of chunda, and this was a pork meat. After he ate that meat, it was something wrong with was wrong with that meat, and actually after he ate that meat, he had problems with his stomach, with digestion, and he died. But it confirms that Buddha ate meat in his during his life. So there are these two examples of meat eating. I know maybe some of you have been dealing with Buddhism and maybe even have practiced some Buddhist practices. And there is some opinion that this food that was offered by Chunda was not pork meat. Although in the text it is mentioned as Sukara Madhava, which actually means well prepared or soft meat or pork meat. In this 13th century, there was a commentary on this sutra where it was written that it was not pork, it was mushrooms. And that is not very, how you would say it, this argument is not very strong because it was written 2,000 years after the death of Buddha. So it would be the same as, for example, I don't know, if we would, now it's 2,000 years after the Christ, and if we would say now that what is written in the Gospels about the Jesus Christ's biography, he didn't use the wine and the breads, he used maybe something else, apple juice and meat. Yeah, this would be very strange if we would say it like that. But for some reason, people go on with this idea about the mushrooms, some kind of black mushrooms, but that is not very strong argument. And there is also a story about the Mahavira. He talks, not he, but the story goes on about the fact that Mahavira, once he was very sick, and he asked one of his followers to go to some woman and ask the follower to bring him some meat. And there was a woman, EUY, she offered 2 pigeons for the Mahavira, but he declined this offer, and because this meat was killed exactly for him, and he asked this woman to give him some poultry that her cat killed before that. So, and after that, he ate this meat that the cat killed, this poultry that the cat killed, and got better. So there is this story, and it is mentioned in Vyahapanati, this text. You can also look it up. So from these 3 texts, we can see very clear that ahimsa was understood in those years, in the 6th century BC, very different. It was not about vegetarianism, it was about not killing or not hurting someone. So I guess we can go further, and this thesis I also showed that this is a misconception. Okay, so let's go further. There is also a very strong idea, it's strong because many people think like that in the yogic society, or how would say the yogic people, that Ayurveda teaches not to eat meat. Ayurveda is a traditional Indian medicine. It is very old, ancient. It's also as old maybe as the teaching of Buddha, or maybe older. But if we look in these texts there are a couple of texts that, the basic Ayurveda texts, it's Sushruta Samhita, Charaka Samhita. If we look into these texts, we can see that it's totally, totally wrong. The Ayurveda has many prescriptions to eat meat. It has prescription to eat meat when there is a spring starts. It has a prescription, many. I can go, it's easier for me to go to the slide and show you. For example, yeah, here's the slide, and we can see I brought here. It's not organized. I mean, it's most of them. These shlokas are from the first chapter, but you know, it's different and not connected fragments of the text. And we can see here very clear that there is a lot of prescriptions to eat meat. For example, during autumn, I'm looking at the bottom one. During autumn, one should take regularly the meats of quail, of partridge, antelope, sheep, wapiti, rabbit. Yeah, very good argument and strong argument that, you know, Ayurveda has very. I mean, it looks at meat as a help to heal a man. Or if we go to the above, I mean, we can use the beef juice to make a soup. We can, to the second shloka, we can use marshy animals. Or we can use, to the third one, meat of wild animals and birds. In case, I mean, in summer. Here's also the thing about the drink, the wine and vinegar and honey, and it's also, it uses wine, vinegar, and honey as a prescription for certain diseases and for certain state to make a man more healthy. So you can look into these texts, the Sushruta Samhita and the Charaka Samhita. This is the examples and the borrowings from the Charaka Samhita. But in Sushruta Samhita, it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same in the case of meat eating. There are recommendations even for beef eating. And here's also beef mentioned, although, nowadays beef is a sacral animal, cow is a sacral animal, although in those texts beef recommended as a medicine, actually. So the thesis that the Ayurveda teaches not to eat meat is totally wrong. It's a misconception. So don't go into it if you want to be not to be how you would say it, not to, if you thought it like this, please look into this text. You'll see that it's totally, it talks about different things. It talks about meat eating, and maybe you will change your mind. Let's go further. Actually, we're pretty much in the end of my speech. There is also a very strong misconception that India as a country, it's a vegetarian country. That is the argument. That is the thesis. And I've been looking for the last 2 years in different statistics, and all of them show that that is not true. India is not a vegetarian country. There are about only 30% of Indians vegetarian. The rest are meat eaters. And I know if you travel around India, you always find a vegetarian menu. There are many vegetarian cities, the holy cities. But in the whole, if you look at the statistics, and I've been looking to a national survey, statistics of national survey from the 2007, it says that 70% of the Indians eat meat. One more thing, I have, this is a more modern, this is a survey from 2014. It is talking about, the data here shows that there are more people who eat meat in India than the vegetarians. And we can look at the map and see that more vegetarians are in the northeast of India, and the west and the southwest is more meaty. So the thesis that India is a vegetarian country is wrong. It's not true. Indians do eat meat, so this is a misconception. So I will be finishing my speech, and actually I finished a little bit earlier than I was thinking I would. So if you have any questions, please write them in the commentaries. If we look at the 5 concepts that I mentioned, we can see that these theses are misconceptions. It is not true, and we can also see that there are some propagators, some agitators of vegetarianism who use these theses to agitate for vegetarianism. And I'm fond of vegetarianism. I've been a vegetarian for many years. I've been doing lots of different diets. I've been doing some fasting, rejection of food for 21 days, 15 days. I've been really experimenting with food, and I can definitely say that, I mean, you can be vegetarian, you might love it. I mean, it's really nice. It can be very healthy, although I recommend to do a DNA test to be sure that, you know, it's healthy for you. But if you stand on the ideological background or religious background, you can look at the facts, and they show that meat eating was always a part of Indian life. For many years, thousands of years, Indians did eat meat. I mean, there is a story of the start of vegetarianism in India, but those facts that I was talking about, there are facts, there are texts that show it. And if you want to be, how I would say it in English, if you don't want to be ignorant, you have to look at these facts and read these texts, the old ancient texts, and find out for yourself what is right and what is wrong. At least, in my opinion, you shouldn't be basing your diet on these facts, because they're not true. And I will give you now the information where you can read all this information more precisely. I had written an article explaining all the things I was talking about in more details. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. We'll see each other next time. Bye.